Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to have a look at another collaboration beer today, and this one is a three-way collaboration, and all three of the breweries that are involved in this one I've reviewed for you on the channel before, and two of them have actually collaborated before and I've reviewed that beer for you on the channel as well. For this one then we are going to return to All In Brewing, who run the All In Beer Fest, which runs every year up in Gothenburg, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, and this is a collaboration beer that they've done with Poppels Bryggeri, who are from USA, just out to the northeast of the city, and J Wakefield Brewing, who are from Miami over in Florida. This beer itself is called the All Bout It. It's a bourbon and rum barrel aged Imperial Stout coming in at 14.4% ABV, and it's also got some maple syrup added into the brew as well. So really curious to see how this one turns out. I've heard some very good things about this beer, and you know, knowing all three of these breweries, I think it will be pretty damn special. So let's just see how we get on with this. I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about all the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done from All In, J Wakefield and from Poppels Bryggeri. No doubt there will be more added to all of those at some point in the near future, but I do hope that I can do some dedicated reviews to J Wakefield Brewing at some point, because all the beers I've had from them have been collaborations. But there's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you, and another one for all the American beers. This one will appear in both of those because it does have dual nationality if you like. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about the breweries then, on to my brewery notes, and we'll kick off with All In Brewing then, since these guys are the sort of home brewery if you like, although the beer is brewed at Poppels Bryggeri. So All In Brewing first off then. So as I've told you before, All In Brewing are a gypsy brewery based in Gothenburg, Göteborg as you'd say in Swedish, on the Swedish west coast, and they started up in 2012 under the guidance of Pelle Frost, and they do plan to have their own brewery at some point in the future, but right now they're a gypsy brewery and brewing their beers in other places, mainly at Poppels Bryggeri for the moment. But in the early years they used to travel around Europe making collaboration beers with other breweries, but recently they began brewing most of their beers in Sweden, and they started brewing with Brewski in Helsingborg down here in Skåne in the south of Sweden, and one of their brewers, Lucas, actually worked full time at Brewski brewing both the All In beers and the Brewski beers, and later they also brewed at West Coast Brewery as well. The three brewers at the brewery originally were Lucas, Victor and Andreas, and they'd always been into the big fruity kind of hoppy American style IPAs, but they were also big fans of the Imperial Stouts as well. Victor and Andreas were the original brewers, and Lucas was headhunted from another brewery, but he was their head brewer for a period of time, and they were collaborating together to make a lot of the recipes. And in 2015 they were voted one of the top 100 brewers by Rate Beer, you know, the peer reviewing website. But in 2019 they were aiming to scale up to brew around 100,000 litres of beer per year, while Pelle is making efforts to get the beers exported over to Europe. Lucas Monroy now though works for Stigbergets Brewery in Gothenburg full time. But every year they also host their own beer festival in Gothenburg. This is called the All In Beer Fest, and this is where this particular series of beers comes from. Some of the All In guys also have a bar in Gothenburg together with some of the people behind Dugas Brewery, and this bar is called the Brewers Beer Bar. There's one on Tredje Långgatan, and I forget the name of the street that the other one's on, but there are two Brewers Beer Bars in Gothenburg these days, and they're definitely worth the visit. You'll find a lot of interesting All In beers there, some of the Dugas beers, and of course some of the Electric Nurse beers, because Mikael Engström Duga, it's his daughter Ida that runs Electric Nurse along with her English husband. But yeah, a very interesting brewery this one. These All In Brewing are a very able brewery in my opinion, and they're definitely worth checking out if you get the chance. So yeah, if you come across any of their beers, IPAs or Imperial Stouts, you are going to get a very very good quality beer out of them, so give them a go and see how you get on. But yeah, that's all you need to know about All In Brewing for the moment. Oh, as always, if you want to learn more, check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram as well to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages to see all the different beers that they've done. So let's go to the American side of things then. Let's have a little look at J Wakefield Brewing. So, as I've told you before, this brewery are based in the Wynwood district in Miami in Florida, and the company is owned by John Wakefield, who started home brewing back in 2005. Previously, he'd studied for a master's degree in accounting, but he'd also taken a number of culinary classes as well, and he continued to expand further into the world of home brewing, and he won many awards in the process of this. And eventually, they opened up their own brewery officially in January of 2015 after they used the crowd brewed format to raise $55,000 to get the premises up and running. At the moment, their brewery is around 3,800 square feet, and they've got a 15-barrel brew house with a second kettle that's reserved for their sour beer program. And this brewery, of course, is known for their IPAs and sour beers. The Florida IPAs are very interesting, a little bit sour, but quite light and bready in the malt bases. And they remind me a little bit of some of the brewski beers that we're getting over here. And you can see some of the influence in from Bryggeriet in Landskrona as well. They do have that little bit of sour edge that you might expect in a sort of tropical climate, if you like. So a very interesting brewery, this one, and hopefully at some point I can get out to Florida and visit the J Wakefield Brewery and do a little out and about video. I think that would be a very, very interesting trip. But these guys are one of the breweries who really pioneered the sort of Florida style IPA. Like I say, that very light malt base, slightly sour kind of type IPA that is going around Europe a little bit more now. But a very interesting brewery, and one that hopefully I can do more reviews from in the future. Again, if you want to learn more about this brewery, check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date, and you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages to see all the different things that they've done. So back to Sweden then for the brewery that this beer is actually brewed at, Poppels Bryggeri, who are one of the more established names here in Sweden. So as I've told you before, Poppels Bryggeri were originally based in a town called Mölnlycke to the southeast of Gothenburg, but they're now based in Untappd, which is kind of up to the northeast, if I remember correctly. But the brewery is named after that which was owned by Johan Poppel, who was a well-known German-Swedish brewer who spent most of his life between Gothenburg and Varberg, just a little bit to the south. But he was born between 1605 and 1610 in Lower Saxony in Germany. I believe that is Saxon-Anhalt, if I'm remembering my German states correctly. But he moved to Sweden with his family during the 1620s, and he met his wife Katarina Krakow sometime between 1624 and 1628, and then later he went on to found Gothenburg's first brewery with her, officially in 1649, but it is thought that they were brewing a little bit before that, since 1638, but without a licence. He's also said to have written down the protocol of the city of Gothenburg for the first time in Swedish as opposed to German, and the brewery apparently remained in the Poppel family for a number of generations, and the most famous site of the brewery in Gothenburg is of course at Stigbergets, and of course you might recognise that name from Stigbergets Brewery, of course, but Stigbergets is a very kind of very pretty square, I have to say, in Gothenburg. But the current brewery was founded back in 2012 in Mölnlycke on a site that was apparently owned by the Poppel family, which is where they took the name from. And the brewery is owned by 15 beer lovers, and it aims to focus on the pairing of beer with different foods. The current head brewer is Daniel Granat, and he's a bit of an experimenter, also known for being a bit of a perfectionist as well. So a lot of the beers that he brews, he'll brew them 4 or 5 times before he allows the company to release them. And apparently he also reads lots of different beer blogs and keeps up to date with a lot of the new beer styles and brewing events and things like that, so he can always modernise his beers. In 2015 they moved to a new site in Jonsered, which is out to the east of Gothenburg, and this has a restaurant and a shop, and they now boast the title of being Sweden's largest organic beer producer. And some of their beers are really pretty nice actually. I mean, they've got the Project series, which I would always recommend you keep an eye on. The Project series, if those do well enough, they always tend to become regular beers. I think the double IPA that they have started off in the Project series, maybe Project number 6. I think the Russian Imperial Stout that they do as well was Project number 2. They've also got the Passion Pale Ale, I think it's called, and that was number 5, if I remember correctly. I think that one was done for the Småland Beer Festival or something like that. But yeah, the Project series that they have is definitely worth keeping an eye on, and quite a number however the beers that make it into that tend to make it into the core range as well. So a very, very good brewery. As I say, my favourite beers from them have to be the Russian Imperial Stout and the Double IPA, and they've been getting a little bit more adventurous in terms of trying hazy IPAs and stuff recently. So definitely a brewery that you want to keep an eye on if you're interested in Swedish craft beer, and probably they are one of the more accessible breweries these days because of the volume of stuff that they're producing. These guys at Opigårds, I think, are the largest by volume craft breweries in Sweden these days. So yeah, give them a look, go and see how you get on. As I say, I'd recommend the Russian Imperial Stout or the Double IPA. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Poppels Bryggeri for the moment. Again, if you want to learn more, check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages to see all the information on the different beers that they've done. So yeah, that's all you need to know about all three of the breweries. Let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So as I said to you before, this beer is part of the All In Beer Festival series. There's been a few beers that I think I've reviewed from that before. I'm sure I reviewed an IPA from this series at some point recently, but I've also reviewed a beer that was a collaboration between All In and J Wakefield before, and I think that was called the Miami Meow, if I remember correctly, and that was actually brewed over in America and then imported here. But this particular beer is called the All Bout It, a bourbon and rum barrel aged imperial stout with maple syrup added to it, 14.4%. So it is a little bit of a monster. There you can see the All In Brewing symbol. There's J Wakefield Brewing, and there is Poppels Bryggeri, of course. And this one is brewed at the Poppels Bryggeri. You can see that on the bottle cap. It's in one of these little stubby recyclable glass bottles, and it just tells you a little bit on the side here. The All In Beer Fest series is where we put together all of our ideas and create new beers from the whole world of meeting brewers, if you like, where we socialise. The idea of this beer was from Halloun Syrups Proving, some kind of syrup tasting, I'm not quite sure, maybe a maple syrup tasting, but we have later gradually created this offer of an exciting beer, I believe it says, and it tells you a little bit about this one. So a dark barrel aged crafty beer with maple syrup and vanilla with a very Dunda, what would that be? Just a very heavy imperial stout, but a very broad example of creativity that happens when we meet between three brewers, if you like. So yeah, quite an interesting one. This they recommend on the side, as you always get with the Poppels beers, they always recommend food and things. That's one of the things I like about the labels. They're always recommending different foods and things. They recommend that you have this one either with cakes or, you know, very, very strong cheese. But I'm just going to enjoy this one with a friend. So filming this, and then I'm going to take it through to my friend in the kitchen in a little minute. But yeah, really nice looking beer, this one. I love these little stubby bottles that you get from Poppels. You used to get these from Brewski here in Skåne as well. But without further ado, let's get it out and we will get on with the tasting. A 14.4% maple syrup, rum and bourbon barrel aged imperial stout. I think this one will be just a little bit special, but we'll need to see. At 14.4%, you're not going to get much head out of this one, I'll say as well. But just look at that. That is a monster of a beer. So, yeah, as you can see and as you would expect from the big imperial stout, this one has poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. If I put the light through that, there's only a teeny little bit of a sort of Coca-Cola coloured edge to it. I mean, this beer really is as black as night. You could see there was a little bit of a foamy, dark tan coloured ring around this one, but that head is faded away to just be pretty much nothing. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall, it's pretty much what you would expect from a big high alcohol imperial stout. This one looks very, very nice, I have to say. So yeah, let's see how we get on with the aroma of this one. Nothing surprising in terms of the appearance for this beer when you consider what style it is. Oh yeah, straight away with this one, you've got that really interesting mix of brown sugar, both from the bourbon and from the rum. Rum's got that lighter kind of sugar caney note to it, whereas the bourbon has that slightly darker, more leathery type quality, and you get both of those out of the aroma in this one. There's a lot of woodiness to this, and it's a very smooth, leathery wood, as I say. I think the woody notes are a bit more prominent from the bourbon rather than from the rum. I think the rum's giving you the more sweeter qualities out of this. But yeah, this one to me comes across as being very, very leathery rather than anything else. As I've said to you before, I've always found American bourbon whiskey to be a little bit more brown sugary and sweeter than Scotch whiskey, which is a little bit, quite often it tends to be a bit more smoky and peaty and things like that. American whiskey has always been a bit sweeter to me, but you know, quite sensitive to that as a Scot, of course. But yeah, this one's just a big, smooth, leathery beast of a beer, to be honest with you. I really like how the aroma of this comes out. You can smell that it's very, very infused, which again is what you'd expect of a bourbon barrel aged beer. I've always been a little bit conflicted as to what to think about barrel aging, because in some ways it takes the mouthfeel of the beer down a little bit, but you can get some really lovely infused flavours out of them if they're done correctly. And what I'd be curious to know about this one is exactly what order it's done, and have they brewed 2 batches of this and then, you know, blended the rum barrel aged version and the bourbon barrel aged version together and then added the maple syrup to ferment, or you know, just exactly what way have they done this? Because you can smell a nice little bit of that, you really can smell a little bit of that kind of almost sugarcaney, caramel wafery, kind of Tunnock's caramel wafer type thing coming out of this, and that of course is the maple syrup. Big favourite amongst my Canadian colleagues, of course. But yeah, I really like how that how everything goes together in this one. You can really smell the booziness out of this beer as well. You can smell that 14.4% ABV. It is a bit of a monster, this. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Some lovely dark chocolatey notes in there as well. Quite high cocoa percentage, maybe around 80% cocoa. There are some sort of treacly molasses type brown sugars in there, but really it's the wood and the kind of leathery notes that are dominating the aroma here. I really like how that goes together. This is a really interesting beer in terms of its malty and kind of, I don't know if you can say the maple syrup as an adjunct, but this one is all about the sort of more malty, sweeter aspects. In terms of hoppiness, you do get a little teeny bit of earthiness out of this, but that's very minimal. Some grassiness as well, but again, when it's been aged, I think it said in the back here, it had been aged for, yeah, a year. It's been aged for 1 year. Most of the hoppy quality is going to drop off in this one, but in fairness, you do get a little bit of red fruit out of this one. I mean, you've got a little bit of that kind of phenolic, medicinal kind of quality in there that you'd expect of like a Belgian Dubel, maybe. Sometimes quadrupels can have it as well. Some black currants and blackberries, maybe a little touch of a figgy note, but really, to me, this comes across as a big leathery Imperial Stout rather than anything else. As I say, it's a little bit difficult to me. If I was blind smelling this, I might struggle to pick up some of the more rummy elements to it. I'd probably pick up the bourbon right away, though. The bourbon is very obvious to me, but some of the more lighter rummy notes are a little bit more kind of subtle, if you like, I would say. But overall, it's an interesting beer, and I'm curious to see how this one turns out actually. So let's have a go at it. This one is the All Bout It, an Imperial Stout coming in at 14.4% ABV with maple syrup added, and it's a mix of rum and bourbon barrel aged from Poppels Bryggeri in Untappd, All In Brewing, a gypsy brewery in Gothenburg, and then J Wakefield Brewing from Miami over in Florida. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål. Yeah, I have to say, that really is very, very nice. To be quite honest with you, it comes across as a lot more pleasant and nice than I thought it might from the aroma. The aroma, I was thinking it would be really leathery and woody and things, and you know, we might really struggle to. I thought I might struggle to enjoy this one as much as might have done otherwise, but I think it really is very, very nicely done, I have to say. I love how this one goes together. Thumbs up to all 3 breweries involved here. This is a cracking beer. yeah, it's just awesome that. I really like this. When barrel aging is done properly, it can be really top notch, and I think, you know, all three of the breweries here have done a great job with it. So yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this one then. Straight away you get that lovely smooth oaky quality that just blankets the middle of your palate there. You can feel it gradually becoming sweeter the further you go into the aftertaste with this beer. If you move further towards the front of the palate from the centre, that's where you get the nice kind of vanilla qualities out of this one. The brown sugars come out in the very centre of the palate. You've got a lovely kind of thicker caramelly note to this one. It's quite a sweet caramel. It's not even dark and treacly and molasses in my mind. It is quite a sweet caramel note there, but as you move further out from it, you start to feel the kind of bourbon notes out of the beer, and then as you reach the very edge of the palate, you get that more kind of sugar caney, biscuity type flavour that you would expect from the rum barrels. But the vanilla, I think, becomes really prominent in this one the further that you go into the aftertaste of the beer. Yeah, it's the way the barrel aging is done in this is just, it really is spot on. I like how this is one of these beers where it's all about how these flavours kind of mix together. That leatheriness I was picking out in the aroma, you will get a little hint of that in the aftertaste. You can feel the middle of your palate just drying out with this one, and if you go in from the front corners of the palate, you really get a little bit of that leathery kind of underlying, and I think, you know, that's the bourbon barrel aging coming out in that one. If you move right into the centre of the palate, then come forward, that's when you get a few nutty and you get a little bit of the nutty and more vanilla type flavours out of the beer from that portion of the tongue too. So that's really quite nice, I have to say. As I say, this is quite a complex one. I thought, I really had the impression from the aroma that I might not like this one as much as some of the other ones I've come across, but I have to say it's been a very, very pleasant surprise. Definitely try this beer if you get the chance. It's beautifully done, I have to say. Really glad I was able to get a hold of this one. That's awesome. Yeah, this is a very, very good Christmas beer. Like I said, I think this one was released on the 6th of December 2019, so this is one of the Christmas small party or tillfällig sortiment releases here in Sweden, but definitely very good for that season. I'm drinking it for you on the in sort of mid to late January, I guess you could say, but it still comes out really, really nicely. To say, the more you drink of this, the more nicely it kind of just dries out a little bit. It does become a little bit more leathery and woody the further you go into the aftertaste. On the hoppy side of things then, there's not too much to report on that. If you go to the back corners of the palate, there's just a little tiny bit of earthiness there. As you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, that earthiness, it just kind of spreads forward a little bit. There's a teeny little remnant of some very slight floral characters there, and you do pick up a little bit of grassiness around the front curve of the tongue. But I mean, when it's been barrel aged for about a year, you're getting very, very little hoppy quality out of it. It's just really the remnants of that you're detecting, and behind the front curve of the palate, of course, that's where you get those lovely juicy fruity esters starting to push their way out of the beer. And there's a fair little bit going on in this one, I have to say. And one of the things I would say you're getting out of this, the more you drink of it, it's got that sort of Werther's Original butterscotchy type flavour as well. I think that's diacetyl, if I remember the chemistry rightly. Putting my chemistry master to good use. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, when you take this one in, it's got a little bit of a juicy kind of plummy quality to it, and that's towards the back of that oily, that kind of fruity part of your palate. But as you move further forward from it, it gradually gets a little bit more figgy. You could be forgiven for thinking there's a little bit of a raisiny note to it, but I think it's more of a kind of sultana quality that's coming out of that, like a mixture of grapes rather than just dried purple grapes or red grapes, whatever you want to call them. It's definitely got more of a sultana kind of feel to it, and if you move further forward right towards the front of the tongue there is a little bit of a figgy note, maybe some prunes as well. But the further you go into the aftertaste, I think it becomes a little bit more blackcurranty and blackberry-ish. I would definitely say that about it. Yeah, a little bit juicy and plum-like when you take it in, and then it just matures into all these other fruits that I've mentioned, sultanas, figs, blackcurrants and blackberries. I mean, in terms of its flavour, this is just a beautifully done Imperial Stout. That has to be one of the best Swedish Imperial Stouts that I've had when I come to think about it. It's just really nicely done. It could well be the best barrel-aged one that I've had from Sweden, but you know, we're talking, I've done somewhere in the region of 1,500, well, maybe not quite that, I guess somewhere in the region of about what would it be, about 1,200 Scandinavian reviews now, something crazy like that. And this is a really top class barrel aged Imperial Stout. It just goes to show you the quality of beers that's available here now in Scandinavia. So if you get the chance to try this one, have a go at it. What I'll say to All In and Poppels, because they obviously are the local breweries in this, if this beer is only released once, it is a hell of a shame, because it really is, it's one of the best ones I've had from either of those two breweries. And I mean, I don't have too much experience with J Wakefield, but I really think that's a pretty special one. I mean, when I've done over 2,000 beer reviews, I hope that's an opinion that they would value a little bit. That is one of the best beers you're going to find either from Poppels or from All In Brewing. Really very, very well done. In terms of the mouthfeel, it's definitely a full-bodied beer. You know, it's definitely one of the more full-bodied barrel-aged stouts that I've come across. I think the fact that they've barrel-aged it in two types of barrels rather than just one, I think that actually helps keep the mouthfeel a little bit fuller. I always find that barrel aging thins out the mouthfeel a little bit, but carbonation is really smooth in this one. It's a big, big oily mouthfeel. This will be a very long boil beer, you know, at least 4 hours I think in the kettle with this one. Carbonation, like I said, is very, very smooth. In terms of hoppy bitterness, I'd be surprised if you're even getting 10 IBUs out of this beer. It really leans towards that more malty, sweet end of the spectrum. Big and syrupy in the centre of your palate, all about the brown sugar, some of the woody smoothness in there as well. Quite a lot of different undertones come out in this one in the aftertaste. So it really is all about that malty sweetness in the middle of your palate, along with the barrel-aged infused flavours. Lovely oily and slightly juicy, fruity sweetness out of this one, but very, very little hop characteristics in my opinion. But to sum it up, a beautiful, beautiful beer, one of the best, if not the best, that I've had from Poppels and from All In so far. And as I say, I hope that I can review some other beers from J Wakefield, but I'm assuming that this must be one of the best Imperial Stouts that these guys have been involved in. So yeah, let's just leave it at that for this one from the All In Beer Fest series. A beautiful take on the Imperial Stout style. The All About It, a maple syrup Imperial Stout aged in rum and bourbon barrels. From All In Brewing, Gypsy Brewery in Gothenburg, Poppels Bryggeri from Untappd just outside of Gothenburg, and then J Wakefield Brewing from Miami over in Florida. An awesome beer, and one that you definitely need to try if you get the chance. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This beer is just quite ridiculous, to be honest. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Poppels, All In and from J Wakefield. I'm sure I'll return to all three of those breweries at some point in the near future, but in the meantime, have a go at this and just see what you think. Thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Slanja, skål, cheers. Make sure you check out my social media, and make sure you check out Poppels, J Wakefield and All In Brewing. Skål.